going to jump around the agenda a little bit. We're going to start with the high school musical, go to ASU, and then we're actually going to have a small executive, and then where everybody will have to leave, we'll bring you back in then. But do you want to get started, or do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, I could start.
Okay.
So, Mrs. Driscoll came to me the other day about next year's musical, and they want to take a little different twist on it. And I said I felt this is something that should be presented to the academic affairs and the board, so that if we go in this direction, there are no issues next year. Because the last thing I want to see is we go to play, we practice that play, and then there are issues brought up at the board level a week or two before the play, and then this is bad for the students. So what I asked both of them to do tonight was to come here, explain kind of what they would like to do, some options, and get this out in the public to speak about. And that way we can make a decision early and move forward, because there's plenty of time now to make a decision. I say plenty of time, but a month or two, and then it's go time. But we just don't want this to creep up at the end. So that's all I have to say. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So in the past 6 musicals, 4 of them have been children show driven. Now we understand that is where the income is very lucrative for a school district. That is where you're going to sell out your shows. In the school districts that are neighboring us, they're like kind of on the cutting edge of doing things that are out of the box, let's say. Like Wilkesburg did Phantom of the Opera this year, and Southern Columbia 2 years ago did something Latin, which is on the verge of being very inappropriate. And then this year they did Sweeney Todd, which is like a murderous, very serious, very dramatic, very adult type of musical. And not that we're looking to do any of those plays, but our kids are wondering why we have to keep doing children's theater. And I don't have any good answers for them. So we've stayed safe. We've done shows that you always think of your cast first before you pick a show, and what kids can do what parts, and how many kids do you have that you feel will continue your next year, and what you can do to make the most successful show for your kids. And they have big dreams that we aren't ready to conquer as a department. Like, they want to do Les Mis, which is humongous, a humongous show, which would cost a lot of money, and it would take a lot of building and a lot of people involved. We're not ready for that, we don't feel like, in our department. Could we be? Sure. Could we pull it off? Yes. Would we probably, I don't know, want to be Amazon workers by the end of it? Probably, because it would be a lot. But we agree with them that they deserve to do something, that they want to do something serious. They want to do a show that has won multiple awards, that has done, won many Tonys, that is known for what it is. We understand that. We agree with them. We know we have the talent to do it. So it's the fact of what can we offer them to do that they'll be proud of, that they'll feel like they're on the cutting edge like the other schools that are in our surrounding area are doing, that they can brag about what show they're doing, and feel good about it. When we said, they were excited about Shrek, but they were like, great, Central's doing Little Shop, or Central's doing Sweeney Todd, and we get to do Shrek. I was like, well, Shrek's a great show. Like, it's got great music, it's got great story, it's got great characters. Like, yeah, another children's show, great. So we really had to pitch Shrek to a lot of the kids. And it ended up being an amazing show. But we knew the music was really good, and we knew the characters were great, and we had a lot of kids involved. Yes.
How do you select?
We pick a number of shows, and then we talk about our cast from this year. We talk about kids that are, well, I can already tell you, like right now, next year, we're already thinking about doing Mary Poppins, which is a huge show. Anything Disney's huge.
Not this upcoming
Not
school
this
year.
one.
I know. So right. So what I understand is, like, from an athletic standpoint, you already know who your juniors, your sophomores, and your freshmen are, and what their strengths are, and where you're going to.
Yes.
So you, in your minds, already have the 4-year 3 solid-ish plan of who your performers are, and then you know, because of your background, what types of, that you'll, and then you put them in a, like, for them to pick from, is that how that works? Like,
They don't pick, we
that you guys told
They
them?
have
Oh,
nothing to do with
okay.
it. We don't, they don't even know until we announce it. We like do a surprise reveal. And
Okay.
then they find out.
Okay, so I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
you are you're 3, almost 4 years out.
Yeah, we're a couple of years out. Like, we're looking at
Yeah.
the kids that were successful this year, and then we're looking to see we can do with them in a couple more years, and what roles we think they can handle, and what roles they would be good for in the future. So, and we will try to put some kids in a role that we think, let's give them a shot and see how they handle it, and then we'll know for the next year if we can lean on that kid for that role. And so we're always like playing chess with who we see and what we see. We didn't have a Shrek in November. We were freaking out because we literally had no one. And we literally knew a ton of who we did have. We knew like the whole cast pretty much and no Shrek. We were like, and literally Draven was the last kid to audition. And we did not, he wasn't even in our wheelhouse. Not even, he was Cinderella's dad last year and grunted. That was his role. And we had no idea. And like,
You did a me.
well, the gods of Broadway shone down on that child. But like literally we had no idea. So now we are in a point where we've got him and we've got, and you, I mean, unfortunately you like look at the kids, and I don't want to say it's like not fair to the other kids, but you say like, okay, Jack Penman's a senior. He deserves a really good part. He's a great actor. He's a great singer. Like, he deserves a good role. Like, he deserves it. He's put his time in. He's taken roles that he didn't want. He's taken roles that he was like, great.
So what I hear though, Melissa, is you're saying is you would like to have a range. You
We
just
would,
want,
right.
you just don't want to be, and so,
Is there a reason why you don't have a range now?
I was just gonna give you a little bit of history. When we did,
So we started with Beauty and the Beast.
okay,
Which was
yeah,
a
that's,
big,
yes.
yeah, I'll just give you the rundown. We started with Beauty and the Beast. It was safe. It was Disney. It is we were, like, John and I were a little wet. Like, we didn't know what to do with, it was brand new for both of us. And so the director from Lewisburg said, do Beauty and the Beast. It'll be amazing. Like, it'll sell out. Like, the kids will love it. Everybody will love it. They'll think it's amazing. And it was. It was great. And then we wanted to go comedy. So John was like, okay, let's do something comedy. Let's do another big show. Let's do Addams Family. We had perfect kids for it. Then we had a student that we were like, Little Shop is perfect for this student. The student didn't end up even being in the show, which is ironic. And then, you think you have 3 amazing performances, and then we kind of got pushback about like,
That's what I was gonna say,
this
there was actually pushback starting in Addams Family.
yeah, like this wasn't appropriate, da da da. We were like, what? What are you talking about? Like, Beauty and the Beast, like, if any Broadway show is going to have some type of inappropriateness, even though Beauty and the Beast is a children's movie and show, I mean, Gaston is like a total, like, domestic violence, poster child. So like and he speaks awfully to Belle and says mean things to her. Like, so any show that you're going to do is going to have, because it's Broadway, and that's what sells, unfortunately, in our country, in our culture. So anything's going to have an underlying innuendo or some type of, violence or some type.
And Into the Woods.
Into the Woods is children's, but it
is,
has
but,
a lot
like,
of
there was, like,
adult themes.
Like we like when the wand at the certain area, that became controversial. So there were just, and I don't even know, Mark, if it was controversial. There were conversations at the board level.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys heard it. I don't know if you
Well, it
heard
was in
any
the paper.
complaints from the high school. I didn't, it just seemed to be more of a conversation at this level. Keith, you were here at the time. I know you're in the audience, but there were conversations.
Yeah, I could give input one at this time.
Do you have, I have no idea what the history is here, so.
I've been to every play we've done so far. Let me say, our kids have knocked every single one of them out of the park. But it's my understanding, basically ever since Beauty and the Beast, these plays have basically lost substantial money. My philosophy is, if you're gonna ask Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer to pay for this and to support this play, which is fine, I got no problem doing that, it needs to be of a G quality, because honestly, I felt uncomfortable taking my elementary child to Little Shop of Horrors. Some of the outfits, some of the language. I mean, if you can find a way for this thing to break even, I don't mind playing a little bit of the edge. But if we're asking our taxpayers to pay $10,000, $20,000 a year to help support this, we can't be turning
Well,
people away.
So it was a financial thing. I haven't seen the financials. My understanding is that it does break even. That, well, even if it
This
doesn't,
year I don't
how
know,
many
but the
sports-
couple
This year I
years
thought it
before
made
that.
money.
It actually made money.
I thought it made
Yeah,
a lot of
did.
money for the district this
It
year.
did make money. Well, it made and in fact, last year it did too.
I think this year we made over $24,000.
Yeah.
Profit. I
I
haven't
don't know
seen
what
the
the
numbers.
I
To
don't
me,
know what
it's,
the profit is, but I,
you know, I'm just one person. To me, it's not.
I mean, we're giving almost
It's an
30,000 in
educational
stipends,
program.
so I mean, it's a heck of a mountain to climb with ticket sales.
I think it's an educational program comparable to athletics. How many athletics teams profit? 2.
None.
No.
No, I was like, why do you think that?
Because, well, you take gate of football and basketball, so I just.
No.
Okay.
That's what I looked at.
I haven't seen
sure
it.
they're equally the wrong way as far as financials go.
So, I don't know that money should be
Well, I don't want to turn away audience. I mean, it's apples to oranges comparing a football, basketball game to one of these, because you don't have like content that could possibly, you know, like you don't hear some, you know, words that probably are said on TV now that wouldn't have been 10 years ago.
well, you do when you go to a sporting event.
I was gonna say it's
That's what you're gonna do. What,
Well, you can't control some of the
You're-
mutts in the stands, but that's a different story.
do you have, did you sell out the Beauty and the Beast and the other ones that were controversial?
we sold out Beauty and the Beast and we sold out this year.
And that was, you were just getting started too, right? Beauty and the Beast.
We didn't sell Adam's Family because it was COVID and we
Oh,
weren't allowed to have an audience.
Okay.
So we live streamed it and we sold every 3 seats and then an empty row.
that's
So there
true.
was like, but our ticket sales like going into Adam's Family were very high. And then we shut it down the night of opening it, so.
I do also think in terms of selling out, our auditorium is one of the hardest
Our-
to sell
yeah,
out,
our
because it has
auditorium's
almost
not gonna
1,000
sell out.
seats.
Yeah.
So compared to a smaller school that might have 400
Yeah,
seats.
Shrek was definitely well attended this year. When
Yeah.
Yeah, we sold out on Sunday, we didn't have any tickets
Yeah.
left.
So I mean, it's
Friday
it's
was
hard in
pretty
terms of
packed.
selling
Yeah.
out.
And personally, I don't think finances should be the determining factor, especially because it sounds like you're bringing in enough revenue to cover the costs, but,
We're not doing it for the.
I would
we're
think
doing
if
it
you
for
put
the
it,
kids to have the
if there's a
experience.
rating.
There is a
the
rating
show,
on
then-
every show.
Then we know,
Every
and
show.
it would be a good test period.
And there
too.
are very few G-rated shows, I don't even know if there's any, to tell you the honest to God truth. It's just Beauty and the Beast is PG.
I would think the kids want a big audience too, so if they see that, if,
Well, and I don't know if it's, yes, a big audience helps. But
what I'm
Plus you can
saying is
also
if we
play
te-
the
if we do a
script
test
too,
this year and we have
possibly.
a rating system and we don't sell as much,
right.
And
I'm
we
sorry,
know
Keith,
going
I didn't hear,
forward.
what about the script?
Like, say if there's profanity, like in one sentence, you change a word here and there. I mean, you
And
can
we
do that
have-
to make it work.
We
Yeah.
have, sure.
Because you probably get the standard blueprint you get from,
We get it right from Broadway.
yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
whatever,
whatever
yeah.
they're doing for a professional show that they're charging $100
Yep.
some bucks a ticket for,
Yep.
which is, that's
For
a
sure.
different ballgame.
Right, and for Little Shop, there were a couple places where I took the script to Amy, and I said, instead of saying this, we're going to say this, and she said, yep, that's much better. And we changed some of the script. We didn't change all, like, I mean, he still had to be the villain, the dentist still had to be the villain, so we, but a lot of the things that he said in the show, we abbreviated, like, to make it so he wasn't as, villainous. But you can't change the whole script, you can't do that, you
Even
can't.
a lot of programs or shows will have like a school edition or a teen edition where it's more appropriate for a high school production to do. And even the language
Oh, sure.
in those, like there's some things that they don't take out in that. So it's very much we do our best to keep keep it as appropriate as possible.
So is there an ask tonight, or are you just coming to start the conversation?
We have looked at, also, just while I'm talking about that, there are some shows that are new and that are reaching like some ideas that kids are going through right now. So like, for example, there's a show that's relatively new. It won Best Musical a few years ago. It's called The Prom. It's geared for it's about a high school prom. It's a real story. It was a story where there was a prom being held and there were same-sex students wanting to go to the prom. And it went to the press and the PTO like tried to shut it down. And it's the story of what had happened in the news and how it was abridged and what had happened to the students of the school. That was just made into a prom. There's more stories that are coming out like that with more modern day issues that students are coming across in their world right now. So it's really about the life of that girl who was absolutely bullied by kids in her school, how she became a stronger person, how other people in the community stood behind her. So they're all like life lessons, but I'm not sure how our community is going to appreciate the art of theater or acceptance or, you know, there's certain things like that. Like I said, the kids, they just came out with Chicago, the teen version. So I actually went to see it in Tunkhannock on Friday. It was really amazing. But the story of Chicago is a true story. It's about the 1920 story of the Chicago jail and these women who went to jail for murder, like murdering their husbands. And so like the show is jazz. It's a really energetic show, but you're not going to get around the story. The story is the story. It's, you know, are we going to sell out if we did Chicago? Probably not. But are the kids going to do a totally right-wing show that they've never been exposed to? That kind of music, that kind of theater, that kind of dance? Will they be proud and saying, wow, we're going to get to do this? Yeah, I think it would. And then we're already planning next year to go back to do a big children's show, and we thought maybe if we just could do one year and then go back to let them have their shot to see how they do, see how the audience.
If I could just make a recommendation, it would be to come to the board with a list of options that you'd like the kids would like to do. Give the synopsis of what each one is, and then we can have a board level discussion and see if we can get something approved. That would be the.
So I know your pressure of timelines. So the board meeting is June 13th.
We like to announce it.
I mean, we can't approve something that's planned anyway.
Right, and we've never had the show approved, like, nobody ever approves our show, but like, because of this, we just don't wanna offend anyone. And we wanna explain why we would like to go in a different direction for this year, for the kids to have something proud of. And that they're very proud of what they do, don't get me wrong. It's just, they keep wondering why other schools are allowed to do things that they're not allowed to do. And I don't have an answer for them. I really don't. I can't explain why Central's allowed to do what they do. I don't know. I don't know. But I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. So.
What has Central done recently? I'm trying to think.
They did Sweeney Todd this year, which is probably one of the darkest shows you can do. They did Something Rotten 2 years ago, which is very inappropriate. Very.
They have turned over a.
It's Mean Girls next year. And Mean Girls is
They're
next
doing
year.
Mean Girls.
Yeah, they're doing
Vomit
Mean Girls
every year.
next year.
What's that?
They're doing Mean Girls next year. They've announced it. That's what they're doing next year. Like Mean Girls the movie, Tina Fey wrote it. That's what they're doing.
To be honest, I don't watch a whole lot of TV or movies, so you're just saying words.
Well, it's the title
It's
alone.
not a
should-
children's musical.
It's definitely not a children's musical. I don't
Other than Mean Girls, I never heard any of those other.
Yeah. Well, Something Rotten is just a Broadway show. Like it's like written for Broadway. Sweeney Todd's a movie. Like it was a Broadway show, but they turned it into a movie a couple years ago with Johnny Depp to bring it back. But he murders everybody in the town as a barber. It's the Barber of Seville story.
I think too, the more familiar, yeah, and I'm looking at the dollars and cents aspect, like the more familiar of a name, the more people are going to Because some of them names, you get someone like me, I'm like, I don't know what the
Right.
heck that's even supposed to represent, so.
Right. And Chicago, like, if, let's just say.
When I go to
if-
it, I mean,
Right, I mean, if
I have no
Chicago
clue what that
were
name means.
approved, I mean, Chicago's a very, very popular it's an old Broadway show, it's been made into a movie, it's been brought back as a revival, it has won, like, numerous awards. I think just the nature of the title, people know
Yeah,
the
that's
name
been on
Chicago,
Broadway
like, they
for a
know,
long
yeah, it's been
time.
on,
Yeah,
it's
that
been on
one-
Broadway
that one,
forever.
that's a different one, but some
Yeah.
of their names, I'm like,
But I'm just, if that one were approved, I can say that the cost to the district could be minimal because there's no stage. The costuming is literally like all dance attire because they dance the entire, it's a very large
seen Chicago.
dance show. So I was very nervous about going to see it. I lived in Tunkhannock and we're very conservative there, so I was like, I couldn't even believe when I heard that they were doing it. I was like, they'll never get away with this. But every girl was danced like she was dressed like a dancer, but she was covered in black from her fingers to her toes. Like she had dance tights on, she had long sleeves, she had a leotard and like a shirt over or like a dance leotard. Like that, there was no costuming, there was no costumes to buy. Like everything, there literally had 6 chairs on the stage, some scaffolding. Like that was it. And
You're a performing art.
it is a
you know,
performing
it's
art.
performing
It's a-
art,
Right,
and,
right. And so it's it is. So I don't know if it would sell out because we would have to put out a waiver that, now we just looked it up. It says 11 to 13, right, the audience.
Yeah, it says
11,
they recommend.
recommend no one under 11. 11 to 13, it is PG-13. But it says not recommended for children under 11. Now, did I see children under 11 at Tunkhannock? Yeah, so, I mean, I took my kids to,
That's a very
I've been thinking,
strict-
right, it's what you allow your kids to
Movies
do.
and movies.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
a good idea.
oh yeah, you're not gonna hear any like 4-letter words, that's for sure. I mean, there's no language, it says they've taken out all profanity. There is still obviously there's still gonna be the idea of like, there are 6 women that killed their husband and they went to jail. I mean, that's the story of it. And it's about the exploitation of the justice system, that's the story of it. And how people can buy their way out of prison. Like,
Is there a way, if I work with both of the teachers, to get a list to the board prior to the end
Yeah.
of school?
Yeah, I
Because
can
it's-
put it
it's something
together.
that's never been board approved.
Yeah.
But if we
I-
get that information out to the board, I'm feeling that it's mostly acceptable, we can move forward.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
We could do that then.
yeah, see, I'd like to find a middle ground that we can have the majority of our community support and.
Right.
Because I mean, we're dumping probably about 10 to 15 grand into this a year.
I think it's
So-
very important though. I mean, I was never in the arts.
I mean,
But I
I
do
was
love
on
the
the
arts
board
and
when
I
we
see
pushed
the
to get this
kids
back
that are
started,
there
Beauty
and-
of the Beast, so I know how
I mean,
important
it's
it
very
is.
important for them.
Well, then it gives those kids an outlet.
It
just
is,
gives
it's
them-
absolutely, when you
Yeah.
look at our sports, the money we put out for transportation and all that, it's, we have to, this is just as important.
An academic experience is about a broad scope at this age.
And I'm just gonna give you one example, because I learned this week and it absolutely floored me. I've been teaching here a long time. And I had a student who was standing in front of me, and we were doing vocal tests, and I had said something about, you need to sing louder, you just did the show, like, you were just in the show. And the girl who was standing next to her said, Mrs. Driscoll, she hasn't talked till this year. I was like, what? Like, she never talked. I'm like, what do you mean she never talked? She's like, she's never spoken. So this is the first year in her life she's actually spoken in school. I didn't even know how to answer them. I was like, wait a minute, and you were on stage and you sang and danced? And she's like, well, yeah. And then she got up and we had a meeting and she said, I did the show and I'm gonna do the rest of it on the way a freshman. And I was like, what? She said, I went to Maria, she's actually being counseled by Maria. And Maria said, I said, did you know she never spoke to school before? And Maria said, I did hear something like that. I said, she was in our show. Like, she performed. She's like, yeah, I did. It's like, they're the kids that are going home and not talking or doing anything, I guess. And they're the kids who like felt comfortable enough to do this.
Yeah, I don't think people understand how much time they put in.
Yeah.
I mean, you're there every night.
Every,
I had to leave the one night because you guys warned me I was gone. And then I was there. I think I left around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
yeah.
And you
But it
were
just gives
still
them
out.
somewhere to be, like
Yeah.
it gives them
It's
a
very
acceptance of
It's a
other
team.
kids that are there that
And we
are
just wanna
like
make sure that when it's rolled out next year,
Right.
it's rolled out without controversy.
Right.
And that, 'cause that just steals
Communication
from the
is the
kids.
key piece.
So I'll work with both of you,
Okay,
and we'll get something to the board within about a week.
okay,
Right.
thank you very much.
Before you go, I got a question that's come up on the board level the last couple of years, and you can provide some insight. Because right now, we're paying stipends for all the pit positions, which are basically all adults of that. It's been brought up that, I know we have a phenomenal band, we have a great music program. Instead of having adults do it, can we like recruit band kids that are not in the production? I mean,
So
is that?
we used 3 students this year. And they were, so we have some very amazing standout instrumentalists.
Yeah, I've been with my son.
Playing a pit orchestra is different than they'll ever experience from any type of just being in band or being in marching band. It's very difficult to play in a pit orchestra because of, number one, the length, number 2, the difficulty, number 1, the change. So just for example, and Anthony's played in a lot of pits and I've conducted a lot of pits and even the professional musicians, so you get 4 rehearsals to do it because you can't pay them any more than that, that's a lot. But even with the rehearsals that we did, there are times right up to the show that I'm like, we're on 41 and the professional musicians will be like, oh, because I was on measure 22 or whatever. Like even a professional, and all those musicians that we bring in have multiple degrees. They are either, you know, and they're all music teachers, like, or all professional musicians, and it's a very, very difficult skill. The kids that we brought up this year were very, very, very advanced. And I think we will always give kids the opportunity if we have those kids that are above and beyond. But you really have to have a really special kind of kid. Like you can never ever have a pianist run because the pianist is running the entire show. A drummer is running the entire show. Those positions can never be filled by kids. I can say that when I went Friday night, they had 6 student musicians, and they had about 15 musicians. So, can you use, yes, if you have standout, really amazing kids, you can. Go ahead.
And the other fact of that is the 3 that were in the pit that were playing, all of the other musicians that are like in my wind ensemble, which is the top group that might have been able to handle that book, they were all on stage or they were backstage. They were already contributing to the show, but in a different way. Like they would prefer to do that than to be in the pit. And I play in a lot of the local schools, and I've played with student musicians, and it can make or break a show. And it's not to put down any of the other student musicians, even my kids that are in the pit. Like when Liam messed up, I say, hey Liam, you need to go fix that. Like it's super challenging, and someone who has a master's degree in clarinet, I had to go practice a lot for these shows. So it depends, like if you do like a rinky-dink show, yeah, you probably could do it, but it's really, really challenging.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad for your input, because what sounds like a good idea on theory, once you start, you know, because I can't read a note of music to save my life. So
No, it's okay.
I
Usually
appreciate
people
what
just
you
don't
do,
understand
so
if you're not a
I'm
part
quite
of it.
glad
Yeah.
you
Yeah, and we'll try, because if there's
Yeah.
like we had a flute part this year that if it's not that, if we don't feel like it's worth a professional, like we can save that money somewhere else, then Anthony will say, yes, this student can do it. We don't have, like 2 years ago we had a professional flute player that we hired. And this year he said, yeah, let's do it. So now Central hired some of our kids for their
Central
show.
hired 2 of my kids.
And
to be good.
but they paid them. They got the Central played them just like a professional musician. So like
Yeah, I'd
they're-
like to expose our students to that as much as possible,
Yeah.
if it makes sense.
it's
which-
right.
Yeah.
But then, you know, we don't want our kids to say, hey, Central gave
What
us
makes
$400
it might make
and
sense
you
to
didn't
me
pass."
in this level, you know, when you
Yeah.
deal with music or what you guys do,
Yeah.
necessarily doesn't make sense. So.
Right.
I'm glad you helped clarify that in my
And
head.
some shows are much harder than other shows. So,
Oh, if you get a really
like,
heavy.
yeah, Like Sondheim, the Into the Woods show was super musically hard. That's one of the hardest Broadway composers there is.
We didn't have to sing.
And we didn't have to
I
sing.
don't wanna cut you off, but we gotta
Yeah.
keep this one moving
Yeah,
a little bit.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Group had a good recommendation there, we'll move forward with that.
And the answer to the question I had before, so thanks for that.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
good insight, we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, moving on to ASU.
ASU is just Arizona State University. It's another dual enrollment program we use, and we just need to renew that contract. Right now, we have one student, actually, he travels all over to Luge, and that's where he's taking his courses. So it's been really, it's worked well for us, it's worked well for the one student we have. So I'm just looking to renew that, and I'll have that paperwork to Mrs. Kupski before the next board meeting. So it's no cost to the district, the students pay, I think it's $400 a credit, so it's a reduced cost to the students. But again, that'll have to be board approved. And on the contract, you want my name on it as the contact person, and then you just.
Yeah, it's just always so much easier
Okay.
because you're signing up the kids.
Okay, but I'll just want to bring that out, and then I'll have that for review.
But there might be other kids that are better.
Oh, absolutely, no, it's a good program. Just,
Sure.
right now, we only have one student, but like I said, it doesn't cost us anything to keep it, and it has value.
No, you need to do that.
Yes.
All right, so we'll have to ask you guys to leave for a couple minutes, and we'll let you back in. Thank you.
One of the
Have a
things
good
that I
night.
just wanted to share, thank you, Bob, is that we are continuing to expand our partnership with Commonwealth University Bloomsburg. One of the things that I'm really excited about is I do know that there was concern from parents. Oh, you're good, there you go, you're good, all right, good, good. Is being able to provide some childcare on those early release days in the fall. So I'm really excited to say that we are going to be able to secure some enrichment programming for students on those early release days in our elementary schools. We're looking for approximately serving 75 to 100 students at each building. It's not every student, and I think that that's just a fact of where we are. But it would be an opportunity for students to take part in science activities, math activities, under the guidance of some pre-service student teachers. So I'm very excited about that. We're also looking at working with the athletics department for those days to have some options for some mini sports camps. So I know that parents are very concerned about having those early dismissal days. This is going to be an opportunity for us to provide some of that childcare in a way that's not just babysitting, but it is something that's really meaningful.
No, it's not great.
And I also wanted to share that we are hoping that we will be selected as one of the school districts that the university is working with for their ongoing practicum changes. So they are looking to change some of their practicum hours to spending Thursday and Friday in all of our buildings. So that would mean that in the future, if we do continue to have some early release days, we could do it on a Friday because they would already be here in our building and would count directly towards their hours that they would need at the university as well. I told them that I would love all of our schools to feel like laboratory schools where we have lots of student teachers in there, we have lots of extra hands. And I want to point out that of our recent hires, all but 2 were either student teachers in our district or were recommended to apply at our district by their professors. So I was really excited. We had, I think we had 50-some applicants for our elementary positions, and the vast majority were coming from the university as student teachers either here or at Central Columbia. So I'm really excited to be able to share that. The next thing I wanted to go over is our school-wide planning. We did have our family surveys that we conducted about a month ago. Out of those surveys, we had 375 responses from families, which is a really, really fantastic response rate. We had 10 surveys come in from our families that are strictly English language learners. So these are families that English is not their first language, and Ms. Piper was able to reach out to them to get some really great feedback about what we can do to better serve those families. We had 75 responses from West Berwick, 75 from Salem, 31 from Nescopeck, 78 from the high school, and 106 surveys came in from the middle school. I wanted to share a couple of the themes that have come up in these surveys. They haven't been shared formally with everyone because we are going to be using them for our school-wide planning. But one of the themes that came up was around communication. And when I'm talking about communication, I'm talking about consistent, reciprocal, and structured communication. This came up in our faculty survey, it came up in our family survey, it also came up in a survey that we did with our Title I schools about family engagement that we're required to do as part of our Title I planning process. And so with hearing this, both from families sharing they wish they were getting more communication, and from teachers saying that they were wishing they were getting more communication from families, we've started to have some conversations about ways to provide more consistent feedback loops. So looking at apps that could be used consistently across especially the elementary level, planning for some parent newsletters, having an update to our website, and just really ensuring we have this culture of positive feedback. We also met with our Title I Parent Advisory Committee. So this is the group of parents who come together to really help us inform our Title I planning. And some of the things that came out of that were some additional ways, again, to communicate and help to support families at home. So we're talking about kindergarten toolkits, creating a family website that has community resources that can be updated on a regular basis, and then also looking at some regular family newsletters. Another theme that came out in each of the surveys, so this came out faculty, family, and then again in that parent engagement survey, is needing to have more support for our English language learners. And that was consistent across every grade level. We are working to address this by hiring our additional ESL educator. I just want to share that anytime that we're asking for feedback, I want to be really cognizant that we are making sure that we're highlighting the ways that we are using this feedback to address common concerns. I think that's something everyone wants to know, right? Like, we did this survey, what are you going to do with this? So we're going to be using this survey, all three of them, our faculty surveys, our family surveys, and our professional learning surveys, as part of our needs assessments for our school-wide planning. So the high school will be doing their TSI planning, the middle school will be doing their planning around PBIS moving forward, and both of the elementary schools will be doing their school-wide planning.
Can you explain?
Yeah.
You've got
Going a little faster.
You were.
Sorry.
TSI?
So TSI is targeted support and improvement. So we are required by the state to submit a plan of how we will be supporting that specific group of students we were identified for. But here's the thing about TSI, it's really like an indicator. And I mean that truthfully, because it's saying that we're not supporting a specific group of students, which is really giving us an indicator that there's something bigger at our schools that we're not doing to support all students. So it's not a great thing to be on a TSI list, but it does give us an opportunity to really think about things on a broader scale. Our elementary schools have to do school-wide plans no matter what, whether they are TSI or not TSI, as part of our Title I planning process.
PBIS.
PBIS will be at the middle school, and they will be doing some plan. They may not be submitting the formal school-wide plan. They don't have to this year because they're not a designated school and they do not have Title I funds there either. But their PBIS planning, which is positive behavior interventions and supports, that's going to be a continued plan that they'll be working on across the entire school. Thank you. We'll be using these as part of our needs assessment. We have our school-wide planning coming up. We'll have a steering committee, and we'll be digging into our needs assessment. We have to have parents, students at the high school level, community members, business owners, faculty, teachers, administrators. There's a whole fancy schmancy chart. We have to have representatives from our local universities. So we're going to be getting that started very soon so that we can get moving on that. Our teachers are already, our admin are already looking at their needs assessment surveys in regards to our data. And I just want to share the last piece, and this is something that came up in our parent advisory council committees. So there's a big shift federally, and it's a really good shift, but it's a big load on our shoulders, right? To think about going from family involvement to family engagement. So involvement is inviting families to come to things like Read Across America Night or a science fair, which is awesome. It's awesome to have families come to that. The shift for us, and it's a required shift, we have to make this shift because we are accepting federal funds and because it's the right thing to do, that we are really shifting to family engagement. So what that means is that we're not just inviting families in to kind of see our really beautiful displays, but that they're part of our decision-making process. And so that means making sure that we're using our survey data really well, making sure we're being very cognizant of that, and encouraging more families to be a part of that engagement piece. So we had great, Pam, was that our last parent advisory council?
I think I was a parent.
Yes, and we have some parents that, I mean, really getting to hear their feedback of, you know, these are things that we could really use. And it's great, and it's gonna be able to help us. So that's it. That's all I have. Any
Great.
questions for me?
Lots of good information. You know anything?
We have open comments.
You have anything?
Public comment?
No.
You don't have anything?
I know that we had discussed and shared in regards to some staffing, so we are going through some staff, in order to help some of the concerns and focus, on some of the student discipline and some things that we had discussed. So I'm hoping that they'll get those hires for June's meeting, start to advertise them by the end of the meeting, we had discussed, so hoping to get them out, due to some of our staffing from last month, so looking for different programs, some special ed staff, some support staff, some to support more of like the student discipline, our ALC that we have looked at as well. So, to at least advertise.
Are we using the alternative?
So we do have the alternative learning program is at our high school. We did make the proposal as of last week. We are moving it back down to the site that it was at, where we had 2 classrooms with bathrooms. We are looking at having 2 staff down there full time. There was a proposal of using some special ed staff, but just due to some shortages, I won't be able to maybe go in that direction now. But having 2 staff back down there where our counselors or teachers can go down there. So they're looking to advertise. We did have some other support advertised and change from full-time to part-time. But I'm hoping that we can maybe.
And Pam, can you go through the process that we used to have in place about the 45-day turnaround, like how to?
Yeah, so when we would have a student for alternative learning, we have either our cyber academy that they can go into, or else then we had our alternative learning center. We had it for about 5 years. It was ran at nighttime, but we did make it during the day 5 years ago because we did want students to be here for more of the staff support here as well. Students would go there and have 45 days, and at the end of the 45 days, we would do reviews. Each week there were progress goals and reviews. They were there for a marking period dependent, and we would have reports on what their goals were while they were there, what they needed to work on, and what they needed to do in order to get back to the building. So the goal was always to come back into the main buildings, but it was off-site, away from some of the peers, to address peer conflicts if we needed counselors to go down. We did have staff. There was a main coordinator. There was myself as a director, main coordinator that was there full-time, a para that we then had sent, and then there was also our security personnel went down there. Over the last couple of years with some of the staffing shortages, we have not been able to fully staff that program.
So, back up a second, you said we are going back down there.
Correct.
With 2 full-time.
So we have 1 person right now, and we utilize a half-time teacher. We would like to get that to 2 full-time people.
Okay, and then you said we can't do something?
So I was looking at, currently using our special ed teacher, but because I only have 1 position out of the open positions filled, on trying to see how we can fulfill that 2nd position if I cannot send my special ed teacher down there full-time.
Special ed's been a really difficult staffing. We have very minimal applicants.
So, how many kids do you think go into that center on an annual basis? From Berwick?
We typically start with about 13. By the end, consistently, we're up to like 18 to 20.
Just from our district?
Just from our
And
district.
is that
We
just
had
high
1
school or
student
middle
from
school too?
outside. That is middle school, so 6th through 12th grade. One of the
Okay.
proposals is to make it a 5th through 12th grade program for next year.
Okay.
But it's
And
a
then-
cycling, just what she was saying, it cycles, so it's not.
Sure, but
of the year.
my understanding is that if we created a full-scale program, if we brought in, whether it was, I guess the question would be, how much would it cost to start a full-scale program to fully service all of the Berwick kids, middle school, high school, and also bring in kids from other districts?
To expand to other districts, we have 1 student from Benton that does come to us. We haven't opened to anyone else. We would get the cost from the tuition, which is, I think, the yearly tuition is about $15,000 for
Per
school
kid.
district
Is
tuition
that-
per kid. That is per kid.
So if they come for 45 days, it's 15,000?
So then it will be prorated for their enrollment time that they're here.
Okay.
So we normally accept added districts for the whole year, or for a long-term placement. So Benton had access to partner for the whole year. If they only come for 45 days or short-term, that's tuition will be prorated. To have a program, you would at least need at least 2 full-time people with either a para or an aide or support staff to assist from the special ed side, because we do have
2
students with
full-time
IEPs.
special eders at full-time special ed and social work.
Just 2 full-time staff,
Okay.
preferably someone either from a special ed background, teaching background, that just had and behavioral experience. So the big one is for the behaviors. We have some students that go there for
Well,
discipline.
Pam, the two people cover us, cover
Yeah, so-
Ari.
so-
So if we were to say,
I'm saying, what's the demand outside of Berwick?
if we were to say that.
And I don't know that demand. I know the only one that had to reach out to us was Benton. I don't, Central and Willisburg have never contacted us to use the program.
Well, I'm thinking more.
But I don't know how many students if they would send to know how much we would have. For us to maintain with just that one, we will need at least 2 full-time people. If you add others, and potentially 3 to 4 other full-time.
Central's in the process of doing their own.
Yeah, but there's a lot of districts
So
around
that's
that,
gonna cover everybody down that way.
but there's a lot up this way too. I'm just curious if there's a way for us to create a system where we're servicing these kids and also solving the discipline issue that we may get from behavioral problems.
So we have an inner working network. So years ago, when I first started here, there's something that the IU conducted, which was called Fair Share. And what they did was, a district could choose to host a program, and they would pay you $10,000 for your classroom. You got paid, the district would get paid that. But what was happening was, if I put my own kids in my own classroom, operated my own district, I had to pay a certain percentage back to the IU. So we eliminated that. And then, so you guys have a really good network. I mean, I'm not gonna speak for you, but from a special ed standpoint, student services standpoint. So even like some of our other special ed classes
Correct.
that can't be serviced somewhere else.
So we get contacted more for special ed services since we're one of the districts that have all of our special ed programs here. Other, like Central Bloomsburg, since the drive is closer, they have sent students to us to utilize our special ed programs. Currently, we have 2 students that are coming from Central for our MPS programs. We reach out through our special ed network and just say like who has availability. That is something I can post to that group with the student services to see of the interest of how many that would in those local districts for transportation to see. When we had did this 5 years ago, only Benton had wanted to send. And we did have that student that had finished his high school years with us. And will be graduating with us this year that Benton wanted to continue. At that time, Central and Bloomsburg did not want to send anyone. Last year, I had said, I didn't even ask them just because we had their staff in this fall. Like when we had lost some of the staff, we weren't able to take anybody else than that one student. But it will be something to propose out to the other districts that I can see
And
what
maybe-
interest and
We
start that
eliminated
collaboration. I know
partial.
Central's looking at starting, and I know the conversation from the special ed side, and I don't know if it was more for special ed students only versus alternative learning for all.
But there's also, I mean, there's Bloomsburg Central, Benton, Northwest, Valley West,
Yes.
Hazelton, Crestwood. These are all within 30 minutes of the district, give or take 50 minutes. So there, and I'm just thinking out loud here, if we were able to create a really solid program, and even if we had 5 kids coming in, 10 kids coming in from outside the district, it would more than pay for itself.
Correct. And I can ask them as well, like I have the contacts for Northwest and Nanticoke that I have their numbers and I partner with them. That I can reach out and see if this will be something and about how many, just kind of know from a staffing point. That would be the only concern of however many that we take to make sure that we have enough for our staff as well as for their staff coming in. But it is something that has been a need in the area, just, there's private special ed schools, but there's not a lot of other services to support students who need more of a therapeutic support.
That's what I was saying, it's more, one of the things that we always used to operate in school was a partial hospital program. It was used to be in middle school, was our partial program.
And now the closest one is in Sunbury, they moved to Sunbury, and the next one is in Kingston, and they have wait lists. So as we are trying to get some students connected for services to meet their therapeutic needs, it is very hard to send what these agencies sometimes do not have, and obviously our goal is to keep them here in their home district and not have to send them. But added on more of that therapeutic support that an alternative learning can provide. So that alternative learning center came from having the cyber students that want credit recovery, graduation early, students that are working full-time to help their families, but then also need to be able to have the flexibility of that cyber online curriculum, but still need to check in with somebody to make sure they're getting their academics done, and incorporate that cyber and the truancy. So there's a diverse reason of students that we wanted to attend and the reason for the program. My goal is that if we can get back to fully staffed, the site and location was great. It was close enough to our district where we can go right down. We still pick up the students at our high school, middle school, transported them down there. We would bring them back, but our staff can quickly go down there and provide counseling sessions, provide academic supports. So that location was nice, and we did have 2 separate classrooms, a lobby plus other office areas. And the staff still felt supported, so my goal is if we can get up to a full-time program again that we did have about 5 years ago. We've just been struggling again as some consistent staff. We've changed some of the wording of our postings that I had asked to try to get some more interest.
What are you advertising, what are we advertising right now for the salary?
So we didn't put the salary in, we just changed it from it was listed as a part-time position instead of listed out part-time because it's a full-time but no medical benefits. But those are things that I may come back to the board to say in order to staff that we need a full-time position or benefits or an increase in pay. And those would include like our reassignment positions and our ALC positions. Those are the 2 that we are looking at still filling.
I was recently somebody reached out to me to see if we did have any space that we would like to consider renting or partial for that mental
Behavioral health
health,
services.
behavioral health service. I haven't been able to dive deeply enough into, are they looking for, like, again, previously when we had, I think it was 2 classrooms at the middle school it used to be. You know, is it something like that? Is it, you know, are they looking at high school, are they looking in every building? We do have a behavior support program at West Berwick.
We do.
We don't get rental space payment, like a revenue from it, but we get a lot of support from it for those students specifically in that building. We haven't been able to get it.
No, so for the elementary or West Berwick, we've had now for 4 to 5 years at least. They send a team, so there's clinical director, 2 behavioral therapists that are there on site. So then instead of our students having to leave, they're there to respond for crisis situations, respond to behaviors or concerns, pull out and do some interventions with the students. But they also have the family component as well. Yeah. So they go into the family homes once a week. They work with them throughout the summer, and we have every 2 weeks like core meetings. We had applied, I personally had applied for the last 4 years for Salem. I did not get my denial yet for this year. The problem is with Salem, the barriers have been, we are located in 2 counties. So I've had to work with Luzerne County to get permission for an expansion of Columbia County because our providers from Columbia County would come to our area. Luzerne County did not want to come this far. They don't have caseworkers that want to travel up from the Dallas-Pittston area to come to us and to stay here on a permanent basis of a school year and throughout summer. So we are hoping that if we did provide some data that even though the building is located in Luzerne County, the student population is over 50% of students who reside in Columbia County. So I'm hoping that that would help us with some of the approval, that we will be able to get a school-based team here. So we can try to be more proactive and be able to teach them those skills, and separately from our school staff that we have, our counseling staff that we have at school, but then they can also then interject and provide before going to outpatient or sending them to a partial hospitalization of trying to have the programs that we can support them here. For our secondary, they don't have school-based teams at the secondary level, and that's where building up that ALC, that alternative learning will really help us address the behaviors, the mental health. I do feel like that is the direction for our district to help.
We had a lot of success with that program.
It helps decrease our dropout rates. It helped increase both graduation rates, and it also helps students that were able to get credit recovery so they can actually graduate with their cohort before they were looking at dropping out. And then for students who do work, because we do have a lot of students who have to support their families.
So you're taking kids who are having trouble and giving them special attention, which is helping those kids, but in turn removing a disruption in the actual.
And providing them the skills that they need in order to be in that uncontrolled at times setting with other peers.
We just need, that's why I said, we might need to come back to the board about that position. We're just not getting applicants.
Yeah, I might have to come out for positions or funds. I'm trying to post another.
That sounds like it would pay for itself. So you did have something.
I did.
Do you have anything?
I did. No, that is it.
Okay.
From a staffing standpoint, I have something. We were discussing, getting these changes out. If literally in the next week or two, any movements that we're going to have from a district-wide staffing standpoint for the teachers and the.
Does anybody else, anything you want?
Yeah,
I just
this
have
is like a
something.
for real, like.
I'll do my own timer.
Okay.
I was really relieved because when I saw on the agenda about the musical, and I have come to every board meeting, and I heard some of the concerns about finances, so that was one of the reasons I really wanted to be here, because Christina Culver, Salem Township, I'm a graduate of this school. If we had had this when I was in school, if we had done these kind of shows, I can't even imagine. We went to Broadway once a year with the chorus, but if we had gotten to perform, that would have been amazing. And back then there weren't really children's shows, so even better. So I'm relieved of that. I am someone who was bullied very badly in the school district, but the one place where I was good and okay was when I was singing on stage. And I got solos and I stood in front of my classmates, and it saved my life. So I really just caution everybody when we talk about finances, this, for kids that are in the arts, it can save their lives. And we score better in math and science and English, and you can Google it. It is all over. There are so many studies that show that our kids that are in these programs will do better in school. And they'll behave better in school too. There'll be less problems. While we were out in the hall, I looked up the Ray of Light Awards. I know that our school, I guess, is outside of that area, but there were only 2 out of 15 schools that did a children's play, a children's musical. One did Shrek, one did Seussical the Musical. People did Damn Yankees, they did swear words in the title. So I just want to point out that we are in the minority if we're having our kids. And I know, I work at Geisinger, I have a lot of coworkers whose children were in other plays, and they all sold out with, Sweeney Todd sold out like almost immediately. Their tickets were gone within 2 days. So I don't want everybody to think, so even though finances aren't, again, my take home, I don't think we have to assume that if they do a more grown-up play or musical that we won't have that. And also, just to throw it out there, I'm glad that they're being proactive, absolutely, and kind of talking, because you can look all over. It's one of the reasons Travis and I are at every school board meeting, is about censorship going on around the country. And I just want to say, I'm glad they're being proactive, but preemptive censorship would be just as bad as if the kids were ready to go and then we censored them. So I just caution the board, caution everybody that when it is presented to the board, that we not make decisions and pick, they said that it was never up for approval before by the board. So I just want to throw out that caution that we don't want to preemptively censor the kids being able to have a play, a musical that they'd want to be in. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you. All right, that's everything that wraps. 1 hour and 6 minutes. Okay.